sensing this danger. This is the greatest showman! He is floating on air now! He's going to send it back.
It's the Multicultural AFL Footy Show with Vanessa Gatica, Habir Singh Kang, Fuad Andrewas and George Grossios.
Hello and welcome to the program. And welcome to our panelists tonight, Habir Singh Kang, George Grossios and Fuad Andrewas. Hello guys.
Hello Vanessa.
Hello Vanessa.
Hi everyone.
Last Thursday night, Footy from the MCG with Melbourne flexing serious muscles in destroying the Brisbane Lions by 64 points and moving to the top of the table. Friday's doubleheader saw the Western Bulldogs easily beat Hawthorn by 42 points, and finally the West Coast Eagles from Perth had a big win in defeating Essendon by 10 points. On Saturday from Marvel Stadium, Carlton eclipsed Fremantle to win by an emphatic 31 points, and Geelong just managed to pip Richmond past the post by 3 points. While at the SCG, Sydney annihilated St Kilda by 51 points. Some big results there and some serious top 4 reputation tarnished. Your thoughts, Javier?
Yeah, definitely. Talking about the first game, Brisbane versus Melbourne, I expected Brisbane to come with more intent, with more vigor against Melbourne, but because Melbourne was without Max gone, it was a big out for them. But Jackson, he filled into those shoes perfectly, and he's taken that opportunity with both hands. Full credit to him, the way he played that game. And also, it tells you how important Stephen May is to that team. And that made Jack Lever look better. And they put aside all the offside issues, onside issues. Everything was blown away. And Melbourne coming very strong.
Well done. Yeah. Let's see. The first quarter, it was just equal. 2 goals to Melbourne and 3 goals to the Lions. But in the last 3 quarters, we see Melbourne scoring 14 goals. And Vanessa, what did the Lions score?
Well, they used 4 goals in all the 3 quarters, so that is not possible to win.
Not good enough, is it?
Not good enough.
George.
Melbourne arresting that 3-game losing streak, so well done to them. They were fired up. As you said before, Habir, Jake Lever and Stephen May in defence are an absolute rock. So Melbourne were able to use that strong defence as a springboard. Brisbane Lions, we've been saying it for many weeks, if they can't win interstate, especially at the MCG, they will struggle in September.
Right.
Well, Doggies, they had a very good night against Hawks. I'm not sure what happened within the middle quarters, because if you look at the first and the last quarter, Hawks would have won probably, and the way they played and the number of scores they've done and the number of goals they score. But it was just that the middle quarters, they were not there, and they didn't have that hunger, they didn't have that coordination going on. Or perhaps Bulldogs found that mojo during the middle, and there was no one to stop. Liva, like he's in his prime form at the moment, the way he's playing, and everyone contributed in that game.
Well, I see how the Western Bulldogs won it because they scored only 1-2, so there were 8 points in the first quarter. But when you look at Hawthorn, 27 points. But have a look in the second and third quarter. Hawthorn scored 1-8, and what did the Western Bulldogs do? 11-8. So they took their chances. Hawthorn lost it in the second and third quarter.
Yeah, it was a disappointing middle period for the Hawks. They went without a goal for 65 minutes, but the Doggies with a ramp at midfield, McRae, Liberatore, Riley West playing arguably his best game for the Doggies. They were too good. Hawthorn just can't go hard enough for long enough, unlike the West Coast Eagles who beat a very disappointing Essendon. Essendon were buoyed by that win against the Saints the week before. Ben Rutten was really, really pleased with their performance against the Saints, but this week he would be dumbfounded by such a very, very poor performance, but take nothing away from the West Coast Eagles, winning their first game since round 4. The old brigade are back, so they're getting their play slowly back, their premiership stars.
Definitely. Kennedy had a huge game with 5 goals, so that's what we see when West Coast perform well. He normally is a big contributor, and we saw that happening too. And Essendon, I think they, the way they are going at the moment, the review they're going through, I hope they put some pressure on Rutten as well. I think that's now the questions should be asked as well, and it's been talked about in the Essendon fields as well.
And Carlton A great win against Fremantle. Fremantle, we know, have been in really good form. Carlton coming off that controversial loss against Richmond. Their forward line was on song. Their midfield, Sam Walsh, 40-plus possessions, best on ground, a contender for the Brownlow medal. They have so many good players to come back, the Blues, so they're really, really confident of their chances ahead now. So
Yeah, I definitely expected Fremantle to do better with the Taberner and others dominating because Jacob Whitwick wasn't in there. But to their credit, Carlton, they were able to put that pressure on, even though they were lacking some players defensively. And as you mentioned, there are a few more inclusions that are going to come in, like Adam Serra, Jack Martin. So Blues are looking good at the moment.
Zach Williams as well, Mark Piternay, and importantly, Jacob Wiedering.
Definitely.
Yeah, good to see Carlton just climb to the top 4, eh? And,
Really? Do you actually believe that?
On percentage, like they could have been number 2 if they had the percentage. But good to see that Curnow scored 4 goals. And it's very disappointing to see Freo just scoring 4 goals in 3 quarters. You can't win games like that in AFL.
Yeah. I think Net 5 needs to up his game too. And Geelong and Richmond, what a game we've had. I mean, doesn't matter who you back for, and if you're watching that game, you'll be out of your seat the way that game was played. And the Catry advantage probably got them over the line. Otherwise, Richmond, they, to their credit, that's a loss you will happily accept, although it did sort of dent on their chances a little bit, but I believe it won't matter in the end. They will still make it to top 8.
It was one of the best games I've ever seen this season, I think. I mean, you didn't know the game, the winner, till the last few seconds because anything could have happened in that game. But hey, great comeback for the Cats anyway. And, coming back from 36 points or 37 points, and it's a good turnaround. And
so many momentum swings, and Richmond getting out to that 17-point lead midway through the last quarter, and then the Cats just put the foot down, got themselves back in the contest. But of course, controversy with that sickening incident, Tom.
Yes.
Tom Stewart knocking out Dion Prestia, so that was disappointing. Sydney then demolished a very, very disappointing St Kilda. That's 3 losses in a row for the Saints. They've now tumbled out of the 8, and there's talk about Ratton having his position come under question now. So it's amazing how quickly your fortunes can turn around. But Sydney, back to winning ways, a terrific performance, and good luck to them for the rest of the season.
Definitely. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. You are with the Multicultural AFL Footy Show, and we'll be back with more after this break. Welcome back. Sunday saw the Adelaide Crows beat North Melbourne in Tasmania by 57 points, and Collingwood nearly kicked themselves out of the game with 22 behinds for the match, but won the game over the GWS Giants by 11 points. While Port Adelaide in Atrilla just got over the Gold Coast Suns by 2 points. What do you make of those games, Fuad, since you were calling the Collingwood and GWS Giants match?
That was a great game. The Collingwood and the Giants. I'm not sure what the Giants did. They just didn't turn up at that game. Collingwood played well, but till the last minute as well, they could have lost it for inaccurate kicking. 22 behinds, Javier. What do you think?
Well, on the other side, if we say 22 points means that you've been that dominant as well in that game. So you have that many chances of scoring the goal when you go ahead. And especially when you are at someone else's place, else's side. So that means if you can score like that, that means you are taking that advantage, home advantage out of that team too. So I think that's what Collingwood did too. I think the way they gel together, the way they're playing together as a unit, and the way their coaches, and without Jordan De Goey, they put up a great show. So nonetheless, they will be happy to take 4 points.
But under hard conditions, because it was raining, cold, and the wind, that could have changed the game completely.
As you say, gentlemen, they entered their forward 50 so many times, which is the pleasing aspect for Craig McRae. They were inaccurate. Bad kicking is bad football. They managed to get away with it this round, the Pies, but at least they're in the 8. They're pushing for a top 4 placing, which is a fantastic result. And GWS, they tried hard, they kept themselves in it. It was a good last 15 minutes where they got within a handful of points, but it wasn't to be. But speaking of dominance, how good were Adelaide against North Melbourne in Tasmania, Fuad?
Well, I guess you're as good as your forwards, we had Taylor Walker coming back and he's playing some great football. He scored 6 goals. Fogarty scored 4. So when you have 2 forwards scoring 10 goals, Habir, what do you expect? You get a winner.
Definitely, and I hope there's some review that's going on at North Melbourne. They come up with something too, because that team is not performing at all, and the players on field, off field having issues with all the things going on the social media and justifications coming along. North Melbourne really need to step up their game, otherwise they're in trouble. And Port Adelaide, Gold Coast, what a game they had over there. Gold Coast, the way they are playing, they're impressing everyone. Rankin, the way he scores the goals, it's been a pivotal for him that his career is built around those good goals. And all to their credit, they narrowly lost to Port Adelaide. And Port Adelaide, I think Dixon's having a good time at the moment. So it was a good game to watch again between these two.
Thank you, guys. Moving on to round 16 with more Thursday night action from the Gabba. This time with Brisbane taking on the Western Bulldogs, and on Friday the Blues play the Saints from Marvel Stadium. Saturday, Essendon tackle Sydney from the MCG, and the Crows in Adelaide host the Melbourne Demons. George, does Adelaide have any hope of beating the reigning premiers?
No, they don't,
No.
but Melbourne have to be careful. They can't take Adelaide for granted, Fuad. We know how good Adelaide's forward line were last week, but Melbourne's defence with Lever and May and that fantastic midfield will be way too strong.
But also, George, last year in the first game they played at Adelaide Oval, Adelaide beat Melbourne. So that is, it is a possibility, but not at the moment, because Melbourne started to see some confident, and they've scored demolished by 64 points. When you demolish a team by 64 points, that's great. So, but to me, I think Melbourne.
Yeah, definitely, you have the home advantage, but you have to understand, Liver played there too, so he's going to be more comfortable playing at Adelaide ground as well. So it's Melbourne for me as well.
Yeah, Brisbane at home next Thursday against the Western Bulldogs. I would expect them to be way too strong. Brisbane Lions looking to bounce back after such a timid performance last week. It was a very uncharacteristic performance. I know Western Bulldogs were dominant against the Hawks, but for me, Brisbane Lions will win this one.
Well, they should win, and my only concern with Bulldogs is they will still put up a good fight, and it's going to be a close game for me. But where they will lose is inaccuracy in front of goals. I think that's where it might creep in for me. That's where I can see the game.
But Brisbane at home, they should win. Yeah, that's an advantage to them. Yes.
Yeah, and Carlton should beat St Kilda at home as well to inflict a 4th loss in a row for a disappointing Saints. Their season is starting to slip away.
Definitely, and St Kilda needs to lift up, at least put up a fight. I don't see them winning that game, but they need to do something for their fans and the team.
Well, with Carlton, they got the top 4, and it could be the top 2 on the line. I think that's a big motivation for them to try to win that game.
Well, Blues on 10 wins, marginally outside the top 4, so there's a lot at stake for the Blues and for the Saints as well. And Essendon taking on Sydney at home. Sydney should win. That's, as we said earlier, Essendon have been very disappointing, and the pressure is firmly on Ben Rutten.
Yeah, normally I would say that would be a close game, but the way Essendon are playing, I don't think they stand a chance against Sydney.
It might be a practice game for Sydney as a percentage game, maybe.
Thank you, guys. And we'll be back with more previews and tips from this weekend after this break. Stay tuned. Richmond played the West Coast Eagles on Sunday from the MCG. The GWS Giants entertained Hawthorn from the Giants Stadium, and in a blockbuster from the West to finishing the round off, Fremantle take of Port Adelaide in a high-stakes survival contest. You can open the discussion, George.
The Cats will thrash North Melbourne. North Melbourne have lost nearly 10 games or so by over 50 points. This game will be no different. Geelong will dominate it. It'll be an opportunity for them to make up some percentage on Melbourne. The only shining light for the Roos has been the introduction of some young kids like Jackson Archer, the son of champion Glenn Archer.
Yeah, definitely. I think Geelong can put in their VFL team to make a match out of it. Otherwise, I don't see North Melbourne coming any close to that team.
Well, I can see, talking about coaches, just quickly, that could be the end of Noble if if they have another thrashing. I don't think he'd be there too long.
The game of the round will be Gold Coast and Collingwood. Gold Coast returning to their home ground. A narrow loss last week. Collingwood, very confident. They've been travelling really well this season. They had that great win in recent times in Fremantle. They won't be scared about this particular trip, but the Gold Coast for me will be too strong, too quick on their home deck.
Yeah, well, they can't be wasteful, that's for sure. Collingwood needs to come on that point, and this game, that might hurt them. So I agree with you. I believe Gold Coast, they are very hungry at the moment for the win. I think they will give a good fight to Collingwood.
Sorry to disagree with you guys. I reckon Collingwood will be too strong for the Gold Coast, especially after what we've seen from them, 22 points behind and so many goals. I reckon they can score. They've got so many shots at the goal. If they work on how accurate their shootings, I think they'll be too good for.
Well, Gold Coast are only one game outside the top 8, so there's a lot for them to play for. Collingwood looking to, believe it or not, make the top 4, which is an unbelievable result.
Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of unbelievable results, Richmond taking on West Coast. West Coast with that great win against a very, very disappointing Essendon. West Coast slowly starting to get some of their better players back. Willie Rioli, there's the possibility of Natanui making a return, but Richmond, a great performance last week against the Cats. They were unlucky to lose that, but they should be too strong at the MCG and give themselves an opportunity to re-enter the 8.
Yeah, well, if it was at Optus Stadium, I would have given some chance to West Coast, but over here, I think the way Richmond are flowing at the moment, they're playing very good. Although the old West Coast, they would perform well at MCG, but this current outfit at the moment has a lot of doubts, and Richmond, they are too strong.
How often do you see Richmond lose 2 games in a row, especially at home? So I can't see them losing to the West Coast. But what about the game between GWS and Hawthorn? Who do you see? I mean, Hawthorn's coming from a loss, so is GWS, gentlemen.
It's hard to say how Hawthorn will react. They've been in some reasonable form. They're very competitive. They just can't string 4 quarters together. And Sam Mitchell was on record after the loss to the Western Bulldogs saying, we're not tough enough for long enough. They had a great opening quarter against the Dogs. They've done that in a number of games. They can't afford to give GWS a start. They've got some really good players hitting form. GWS, Toby Green, for example, Taranto, these sort of guys. If Hawthorn are off their game, and they've been really, really disappointing through the midfield and around the ground, and that's been a strength of GWS in recent weeks. So Hawthorn will have a tough game ahead of them.
Yeah, and speaking of the tough one, I'm not sure how tough he is with the players at the moment. The way Sicily came back after doing that with Norton, he was still having giggles and everything.
Stealing his headband.
Yeah. And whereas like in the middle part, Hawks were losing that one. I think Sam Mitchell needs to come up with some vigor as well for that Hawks to come back. That's again my thoughts, and I believe GWS Giants will win on Giants Stadium in that game.
And Fremantle taking on Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide have a slim chance of making the 8. They're slowly finding some form forward.
They are, but once again, Freo at the Optus Stadium, and Freo needs to correct their the way to come back to the winning style. So I think, in my opinion, Freo will be too strong for Port Adelaide in Perth.
Yeah, no, I agree. Fremantle would be stronger. Although I would say that they will put up a fight the way Connor Rosie is playing, and Dixon has lifted his game. it has a potential to be a close contest, but Fremantle at home, I think they will mend their ways and win this one.
I'm looking forward to the midfield. Sam Powell-Pepper, that match-saving tackle last week. So they do have some really tough nuggety players, Port Adelaide. So Fremantle need to be on their guard.
Absolutely. But it will be a good game.
It will be, yeah.
Clash. All right, we've done all the previews, but how about the red card, guys? Now, do we have, we use what we use in soccer, a red card, so you send them off for 1 game, 2 game, whatever it is, or you send them to the sin bin. What is your thoughts, guys?
Yeah, look, I think if you knock out the other player from the whole game, it's only fair that you are sent off for the whole game, because if you look at that game with Tom Stewart, what he did to Prestia, they lost a good player, and on the other hand side we saw Tom Stewart just taking over the game.
He was best on ground.
Best on ground. So that sort of it's not fair in any sense. Yeah. So definitely for me it depends upon if the other players are gone out, then it will be whole game. Otherwise, just give some sort of timeout at least.
But just one quick one, whether you send them off, is that means they're going to play with 17 players or 18, because you can bring the interchange. What do you think should happen?
Well, if the player who commits the offence is taken off the ground for a certain period of time, of course,
so they play.
It equalises it, because the team that lost the concussed player, as in the case of Dion Prestia is not allowed to return to the field. Right. So, as we saw with Geelong, they had a numerical advantage. It helped with their rotations. And if they lose a player to an incident like that, there have to be really strict parameters with how you enforce a red card. It has to be an incident where someone goes outside of the rules. They take out a player through an illegal act. If they commit an illegal act, they must sit out some of the game time.
Very well, this brings me to my tip selections, and this week I'm going for Western Bulldogs, Carlton, Sydney Swans, Melbourne, Geelong, Gold Coast, Richmond, GWS Giants, and Fremantle. Well, that is all we have for this week. You can also watch us in Adelaide on Channel 44 Friday 6:30 p.m, on Aurora Foxtel TV at 1 p.m. Saturday, and on the NEMBC AFL YouTube. You are listening to this podcast on the Community Radio Network, and the AFL Diversity News in 8 languages can be heard on select national multicultural radio stations. I am Vanessa Gatica, and from all our panelists, Javier, Fuad, and George, good night, and we shall see you next week.